Hi, everyone. I'm Nicholas Weist. I'm Director of Shandaken Projects, and I'm the current chairperson of Rethinking Residencies. On behalf of my colleagues, thank you so much for attending the Rethinking Residencies Symposium. And thank you also to my colleagues at Rethinking Residencies who've worked so hard to commission and present the scholarship that you've been hearing about the last couple days. I also want to thank our partner, the Vera List Center for Art and Politics, and the New York State Council on the Arts, which is the major funder of this program. Shandaken Projects is a founding member of Rethinking Residencies, which has brought New York-based organizations together to share resources and to cultivate thinking about residency administration since 2014. In America, where we operate, even nonprofit organizations are encouraged to compete for resources. So it's a very, very rare and special event when institutions decide to collaborate instead. And I'm very proud to have stewarded this working group, which prioritizes truly nonprofit logics like consensus-based decision-making. We seek out diversities of scale and approach, and we encourage warm interpersonal relationships as a foundation for professional bonds. And the longevity of our group is a testament to the power of these practices. Organizations that belong to Rethinking Residencies, or maybe to whom Rethinking Residencies belong, includes Abrams Art Center, I-Beam, Fire Island Artist Residency, Flux Factory, International Studio and Curatorial Program, Lower Manhattan Cultural Council, Queens Museum, Pioneer Works, Recess, Shandaken Projects, EFA Project Spaces Shift Residency, Triangle, Wave Farm, Wave Hill, and WOW Project. When the working group began, Shandaken had the smallest budget and the least staff of any organization present, but was given a full and equal seat at the table. And I'm really proud that today Shandaken is comfortably in the upper middle region of the group's average scale, and Rethinking Residencies has welcomed a new generation of small scale practitioners into our group. Over the past 7 years, member organizations have supported one another through simple practices like comparing internal documents, sharing how we've overcome challenges, and trading knowledge about opportunities. This kind of collaboration has had a huge impact in our working lives and remarkably has happened without the group ever requiring members to contribute financially. Rethinking Residency is able to do its work because all of our members centered generosity, a willingness to trust one another, and open-mindedness in our convening. And we've aimed to bring these ways of engaging one another to this symposium. I urge all of you, when you return to your workplaces and your studios around the world, to find ways to collaborate with your peers as well. I think you'll be richly rewarded if you succeed. Yesterday, we heard a lecture by Ermeli Coco on the history of residencies from late 19th century until today, which addressed contemporary issues such as artist mobility, the environmental impact of cultural production, and the unique goals and values of spaces reserved for process. Our Representation, Accountability, and Solidarity panel featured speakers from 4 residencies around the world and unpacked pivotal questions about how these organizations have responded to complex histories of place and confronted issues in our current historical moment. Many symposium attendees have asked about documentation. Video recordings of each session of Rethinking Residencies Symposium will be online in January of next year, 2022, free for everyone to access at rethinkingresidencies.org and veralistcenter.org. A free digital publication based on the symposium will also be launched in summer 2022 at rethinkingresidencies.org. We're going to begin today with a panel that I am moderating called New Models for Communing, Residency Programming and Strategies, which I'll introduce in a few moments. In today's 5 p.m. panel entitled Structures of Support for the Whole Artist, we'll hear from 4 international speakers on the topic of creating conditions of success for artists with disparate needs, approaches, and life experiences. The symposium is being held in English, and there will be American Sign Language and closed captioning, which you will need to turn on at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Thank you to our interpreters for your work today. Please, everyone listening in, participate in the chat, in the Q&A forum, and to send us follow-up emails if you would like to continue the conversation at info@rethinkingresidencies.org. We do really want to hear from you. And now I would like to introduce our panelists for New Models for Communing, Residency Programming, and Strategies. I am thrilled to welcome my colleagues Robin Everett and Sanna Ritvanen, the 2021-2022 chairs of Mustarinda Association. Catherine Lee, the General Director of Taipei Artist Village, and Sally Mizrachi, the Executive Director and General Coordinator of Lugar a Dudas. Full biographies for each of our panelists are available in our program PDF if you'd like to read more about them. Residencies are increasingly looking outwards and developing new programmatic and structural models centered on community engagement, local embeddedness, ecology, and civic partnerships. I am thrilled to be able to hear from these colleagues about how they handle those questions. So I would like to turn the microphone over to Mustarinda for their presentation. Once each has done speaking, we'll reconvene for brief discussion, and then we'll welcome some questions from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction, Nick. And thank you to the Rethinking Residencies team for organizing this whole thing and for inviting us to speak. And thanks to everyone who's watching or listening wherever you are. I'm Robin Everett. I'm one of the chairs of the Mustarinda Association Board for the years 2021 to 22. I've been a member of Mustarinda for the last 6 years. And I've worked in many different roles within the association, as you'll see in the presentation. And Sanna?
Hey everyone, thank you for inviting us here. I'm Sanna Ritvanen, the other chair of Mustarinda Association for this year. I won't be speaking during our presentation since Robin will be giving it, but I will be returning to the conversation then together. Since we are a collective, we also want to represent whenever it's possible with more than one people, our association. So that's why there is also 2 of us now doing it. And as Robin, I have been doing all kinds of different things for the association since 2018. But please, Robin, start your presentation.
Thank you. Yes, so if we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so a brief introduction of Mustarinda. The association was founded in 2010, and its activities are managed by an active collection of between 10 and 15 people within the 38 members. And these members consist of artists, researchers, educators, activists, whose goal is to promote the ecological rebuilding of society, the diversity of culture and nature, and the connection between art and science. And on the next slide, I can show you where we are. So the association hosts an international residency program that takes place here at the Mustarinda House, which is located in the Kainuu region of Finland, which is roughly the size of Belgium, but with a population density of about 3.5 people per square kilometer. So it's slightly more remote. It's 628 kilometers north of Helsinki, and it's just underneath the Arctic Circle at about 65 degrees north, as you can tell by the amount of snow there. I'm actually speaking to you from my home in Bergen in Norway. I generally tend to travel to Mustarinda once or twice a year to spend time at the actual physical location. On the next slide, you can see how the association is structured and all of the events and kind of activities that it gets up to. And all of these kind of grow outwards from the house where the association was originally founded. I'll go into a little bit more detail a bit later with what these various activities are. But the graphic kind of maps out the structure and the infrastructure that make up the sort of immediate community and microbiome that exists around the house. And you can see that there's within the Mustarinda House, even within that, there are several projects that are kind of continuously taking place. On the next slide, we zoom out slightly and you can see where Musterinde House and Association are embedded within the local community of Hyrinsalmi, which is the closest town. This is 24 kilometers from the house and has a population of a couple of thousand people. It's also very tightly linked with other cultural actors in the area. As Nicholas mentioned, that a lot of the institutions within the cultural field are actually have to compete for resources. So Musterinde finds it very valuable to form these partnerships and links with other associations and institutions, so both locally and nationally and internationally. These connections on the next slide are surrounded by the municipality of Hyrinsalmi. So we kind of go through the different stages of government, and our neighbours further afield and some of the arms of Musterinde kind of reach out into these, into dealing with the municipality through education and events programs. And on the next slide, these are all inextricably entangled in the human and non-human communities of local and global spheres in sort of visible and invisible ways. And without this connection, the municipal contact, our partnerships, our neighbours, again, like the non-human and the human, the house, the residency and the association would not function. So the residency on the next slide, which is the reason that we're invited here for this talk, hosts between 30 and 40 residents a year, which is curated through several open calls. And these residents come from varying backgrounds, and we host artists, researchers, writers, activists, makers, thinkers, so many writers actually that we listed it twice on that slide, and any people whose practice needs space or time or the environment or connection given by the residency program. On the next slide, the residents are all hosted within the house, which itself kind of acts as a living experiment, both artistically, socially, and ecologically. It's a testing ground or sort of troubleshooting guide experiment for transition towards a post-fossil society, which is one of the goals of the Musterinde Association. And a large part of this is experimentation with the energy systems, as that's quite vital in the transition away from fossil economy. And we have many different experiments going on with this, such as wind power, geothermal heating, compost heating, solar panels, heat recovery, ventilation, biogas and bioethanol, and wood gas and electric cars. And on the next slide, you can actually see the wood gas car, which was driven from Musterinde to Lofoten in the north of Norway, up above the Arctic Circle, for an international art biennial there. And on the next slide, there's the compost heater, which was an experiment that ran for several years and provided around 20% of our hot water for the house per year, and worked with the local community of farmers to collect the silage that they couldn't use due to some malfunction in the packaging or something that would cause it to begin to decompose, which we of course can take advantage of. And through a similar process to composting, we could heat our water for the house through many meters of pipes that will run through this container. And on the next slide, you can see the back of the house, which shows our solar panel array, which through the summer, where we get an incredible amount of daylight, provides more than enough electricity for the house, and through the winter is able to top up just a very small amount. So we get, I think in the middle of winter, there is maybe 3 hours of daylight on a clear day. So it's it's a good testing ground as it's quite extreme in its situation. So yeah, anywhere kind of below this in more friendly climates is easier to manage. On the next slide, are many kind of education and events programs, which includes workshops, courses, classes for school children, summer art camp, lectures, seminars, and concerts. And then I think the next several slides are showing, kind of detailing these events, such as working with partners in the Forestry Commission, the Luontoliitto, like the Nature League, to host courses and educational events in the forest surrounding the house and in the local schools, such as the next slide, I think. And this was an event that was hosted at the Musterinde House called Lichenfest, which was exploring the many different aspects of lichen. We also work internationally, if you skip ahead 2 slides, with the Wood Opera in Lithuania, which was a program in 2019, where an opera was written to be performed amongst the forest of Musterinde, and it invited the whole local community there and provided transport up from Helsinki to watch also. On the next slide, you can see that it's not only art and culture that we work with, but the house also hosts social work, seminars, and care for local communities. And this is in the same space where on the next slide, you can see our exhibition program, which sometimes takes place in that space. And I'm actually running out of time here. So if we can skip ahead just several slides, you can see that all of these activities all grow out from the house and the garden and the soil that's there, which is all cared for by the residency guests, the Musterinde members, the human, and all of our non-human visitors as well, without which none of it would function. So I think this symposium gives a really great chance to explore all of the many aspects of what it can mean to have a community and to work with a community. Yeah. So thank you very much to Rethinking Residencies and to Nick. And I'd like to pass over now to Catherine Lee to give their presentation. Thank you.
Hello, hello everyone. My name is Catherine Lee. I'm the director of Taipei Artist Village in Taiwan. Can you see my image or can you see my face? Okay, I think maybe it is a little bit, okay, great. It is my pleasure to be able to participate in this international symposium. The borderline of Taiwan has been locked down due to the pandemic since this May. So I'm really excited to join such a great online event to share our experience and the thought regarding to the residency programs. Next, please. Taipei Artist Village is located in Taipei, the north part of Taiwan. We are the first publicly funded residency institution. 80% of our annual budget is from Taipei city government to support all the art production and the cultural exchange via international residency programs. Next, please. We have 2 sites. One is located in the center of Taipei, near Taipei main station. The other one is located inside of a historical community in the south part of Taipei. Let me explain more. Next, please. This is our look of Taipei Artist Village. The mayor set up artist residency in 2001 for international cultural exchange and office mobility. We want to invite brilliant international artists and cultural leaders to Taipei and provide them a great experience in Taipei to explore the city, to produce artworks, to meet people, or to understand this independent country. Next, please. We provide living studios and working studios in the both Taipei Artist Village and the Treasure Hill Artist Village. The open call selection is around March to June each year. The art form can be visual arts, performing arts, film, theater, dance, literature, etc. We provide networks and administrative services based on the artist's proposal. In the end of each residency, the artists could join the group exhibit to share their artworks or their residency result. Next, please. Until now, we have received more than 600 international artists to Taipei Artist Village and the Treasure Hill Artist Village. We also sent out about 200 Taiwanese artists to our partner institutions in different countries. Next, please. The selected international artists can stay in Taipei Artist Village for 3 months for free. Taipei Artist Village has the different facilities such as wood studios, dark rooms, piano room, or dance studios. Artists can use all kinds of facilities based on their own needs. Next. Not only receiving the international artists, we also send out our Taiwanese artists to different partner institutions, such as Tokyo Arts and Space in Tokyo, Bank Art in Yokohama, MMCA Residence in Gaoyang, Korea, Open Space Bay in Busan, Sebakong University in Bangkok, Perth Institute of Contemporary Art in Australia, the Great Project in Singapore, and other 3 partners institutions in Europe and Canada. This is we called bilateral exchange program, which we provide travel fees and a daily allowance to support Taiwanese artists who go abroad and provide free accommodation and local service to host the international artists who are supported by the partner institutions. We don't have any partner institutions in the United States at this moment. So if you are interested in this bilateral exchange program, I would be very happy to contact with you. Next, please. Next. This is the site of Treasure Hill Artist Village. It is so-called illegal housing community. All the houses were built by original squatters around 1950s to 1970s on the Little Hill. Some of the squatters came from mainland China in 1949 and they settled down in the area just for surviving and living. Under the consideration of safety control, the whole community went through a long process of regeneration in the 1990s, and the city government has managed the site since the year of 2005. Right now, the whole Treasure Hill community has different parts, including the Treasure Hill Temple, you can see on the yellow color, and the Artist Village, the high school, 1 hostel, and the 20 local families who were the original residents. It makes the whole community interesting and charming. It also attracts many visitors to the community in the weekends. Next. Treasure Hill Artist Village has working studios, living studios, galleries, and outdoor spaces. Artists can decide the space to exhibit their artworks. We welcome all kinds of the site-specific production and the community engagement programs. The local families were very friendly. They're managing a grocery store, they grow vegetables, they raise chickens and geese. I noticed artists like to join their activities and talks to them to gain more information on their daily life. Next. This is how we host the whole residency artist. This is how we operate the whole residency program. After artists arrived at Taipei, we will organize welcome party, artist talk, open studio, and group exhibit as a public event. We also have one-on-one interview to understand everyone's projects and the proposal, to be able to match different kinds of curators, organize field studies, or to connect with different groups. It will be a great help for the artists who are interested in the community engagement to organize workshops or interactions. Next, please. We used to have open call for 20 international artists every year, but the pandemic situation really slows down the projects. Some artists are still waiting for the residency reopen. We've discussed with them, but it seems like the virtual residence is not the preference. They want to be here in Taipei. Therefore, we will not open call until 2023. Next, please. These are several photos for different activities and meetings. Next. We also we host Treasure Hill Light Festival each year and invite all kinds of artists who are interested in the site-specific production and use light to tell the story. And the visitors is around 40,000 per year. Next, please. These are the several photos on the open studios and the exhibit opening. Next. Because of the pandemic control, we can only have limited people in one room. We use on-site online as the way to present all kinds of public events. And we encourage artists to come up with some new ideas to present their works on site and online at the same time. We provide technical support to them. Next, please. Before the residency ends, we will make a short film for each artist to share their residency experience in Taipei. It is just like an archive to keep their record in Taipei. It also promotes the residency programs to the public. You can check it out on our YouTube channel. Next. Taipei Artist Village and the Treasure Artist Village are not the only residency programs in Taiwan. We have other partners in other cities in this country. We have the connection with all of our residency partners. We welcome artists to travel around Taiwan to see all of the beautiful sites and to meet different art people. Next, please. In the end, I'd like to introduce some projects this year. Since we cannot host international artists, we try to focus on the inclusive art project. We invite artists on wheels, artists with visual impaired, and the artist who has a rare disease to come to the Taipei Artist Village to develop their artwork. One artist used gauze and a bandage to create a huge installation. One artist put the camera on wheelchairs to make a performance. The blind artist can draw the landscape painting with audio description. The way they use their body also inspire other artists and art students. The 4 joint exhibit brought in different types of audiences. It also encouraged handicapped people to release their creativity from their body and mind. It opens a new window to us. We will continue these projects for the next several years. Next, please. Next slide, please. We also paired the previous one, sorry. We also paired 2 artists in Taiwan and the 2 artists in Chile, who are the street art practitioners. By the virtual residency, they produced 4 public artworks together on Taipei streets. It took a lot of time on the online meeting and the discussion. The project is still ongoing. We are looking forward to a real trip to Latin America. We really want to learn more about the other side of the earth. Next, please. And last, we built 1 virtual gallery in the Treasure Hill. If you are interested in how the Treasure Hill looks like, please take a look in our website. Okay, next. Finally, I'd like to thank you everyone, and a special thanks to the Rethinking Residency for giving me such a great opportunity to introduce Taipei Artist Village and the Treasure Hill Artist Village. Hope we can connect with each other very soon. So next to the Sally from Lugar Dudas.
Hello, thank you, Catherine. Thank you. I'm Sally Mizrachi from Lugar Dudas. Thank you, Kari, for inviting me and all the people who organized this great event. Lugar Dudas was established in 2005 as an independent not-for-profit space in Cali, in the southwest of Colombia. Next, please. It says, this place is for you, come on in. I like to start with this image because it's we have in a billboard in the entrance of Lugar a Dudas, because it's the strategy that we use to invite people to come in to the house, because it's very different to be in a public space that you can get in, but to enter to a house that is a private space is the way that we invite people to get in. Next, please. This is a drawing that represents our ecosystem and all our relationships with the local context, our activities, our resources, desires, and challenges. We are in relation with the internal and local context, international and local context. We have some resources that are tangibles and some of them are intangibles. We are a team with people who passionate work at the place. And we have some challenges and some difficulties to confront the space. Those are some pictures of the space. We are not only a residency program. Lugar a Dudas aim and promoting disseminating contemporary artistic practice. Its names, that means room for doubts, is a space for thinking and reflecting on the artistic practices and the complexity on the context in which we live. We work as a laboratory for research, lively discussion, reflection, and critical analysis, and have a continuous program of exhibitions, workshops, talks, and other different events. We also house a very big documentation center dedicated to the visual arts, which includes over 7,000 books, magazines, and videos. This is some images of the exhibitions, the documentation center, and all the activities that we do. Next, please. It says receive as experience. This is about the residency program. I can say it was initiated in 2006 as one of the first residency program in Colombia. The intention is to offer artists and curators different alternatives to explore in a new context ways of interaction during the creative process. So the residency consists in an interactive space which encourages exchange of ideas and activates experimentation. Residencies are based on process with no rigid structure, allowing artists to develop projects in response to their experience with the city, with the people, and the environment. So it means that the format is designed as an alternative for dynamic, collective, and interactive work in which situations are built that welcome experiences and reflection from different perspectives and disciplines. Artists undertake projects that place greater emphasis on the creative process, experimenting with new ideas, freedom of artistic exploration, and risk-taking. The next, please. In this sense, our residency house is more than an accommodation space. It's a meeting place from where the processes of its experience with various sectors of the community are raised and socialized. However, it's not a place of exhibition as such, but a place open to experimentation, offering the conditions of a laboratory. Artists could visit art schools and give talks, have the possibility to make contact with other artists, organizations, students, and art professionals in Cali, establishing a mutual exchange of ideas. They can exhibit all their process experience at the end of the residency via an open studio. The call is permanently open and participants are selected by a committee made up of members of the working team. The minimum residency stay is 6 weeks, and in each period there can be 3 to 5 residents. To finish with this presentation, I would like to highlight that we work in a collaboration with other organizations and networks. The residency program began in 2006, generating a work in collaboration with other spaces and different organizations at national and international level. With Alessio Antonioli, director of Gaswork, we formed the first network of residency together with Capacete in Rio de Janeiro, El Basilisco in Buenos Aires, and Kiosco in La Paz, generating for the first time South-South exchanges. This initiative was trigger for the creation of the Residency en Red. It was a network Iberoamericana, a network made of 28 organizations from South America, Spain, and Portugal, supported by IAC, the Spanish Agency for International Development Corporation. In 2012, we began collaboration with the RESO network, a residency exchange network for artistic and educational programs located in the Italian Piedmont region. And we are part also of Arts Collaboratory, a platform of 25 diverse organizations around the world, focused on art practices, process of social change, and working with a broader communities beyond the field of art. So this is a brief presentation of our space, Lugar a Dudas. And thank you to the Rethinking Residency for giving me this opportunity to share with you all. Thank you. So let's continue with the open con Nicolas, and thank you to you all.
Thank you so much, everybody, for those presentations. We are going to enjoy about 30 minutes of conversation followed by audience questions. So as questions occur to the folks listening, I encourage you to submit them to us in the chat or using the Q&A feature. And I'm going to start us off because I am an administrative nerd. I love thinking about these kinds of questions, and it was so wonderful to see the thoughtful visual articulations of how each of your institutions intersect with for what we can call community and what that word means to each of you. And I was particularly struck by Ms. Dorinda's proposition that the organization is a segment of a kind of networked communities that extend even to the non-human. And I'm wondering if you folks could unpack that a little bit for us and share any experiences of how your relationships with either non-human entities, government entities, neighbors, some of the other folks on your extended Venn diagram have helped to shape the organization, how you have shaped them.
Shall I start, Robin?
Please.
Yeah. Well, I think Mustarinda wouldn't exist without the non-human community that there is. The house is surrounded by this old growth forest, which oldest parts are nearly 2050 years old. And there is also the strict nature reserve in that forest where the human is not even allowed to enter without the research permit. So I would say that our activities wouldn't, or they are somehow also based on that community. And we also want to kind of cherish it and kind of protect it and embrace it as a kind of the, how do you say, like the core of what kind of like keeps us going. And since our work is based on like this ecological rebuilding, this is like important thing to consider and focus on also when we are like thinking our activities. Do you want to add something, Robin?
Yeah, I'd just say that the way that society is structured, these areas that part of our activities are working to protect are governed and they are owned. So, of course, in working to protect these areas, we have to be dealing with municipal bodies, government bodies on a kind of national level, such as the Metsähallitus, which is the Forestry Commission for Finland. Yeah, so these kinds of things are all really interlinked and kind of very inseparable, that if you are affected by the old growth forest, whether it be on a artistic level or a spiritual level or any kind of level, that it doesn't stop there, that you are kind of then simultaneously affected by the government, by the municipality, by Musrinda, who's working with the forests, and yeah, and then on a very kind of basic level by the non-human entity that is the forest, and kind of everything that lives within. Yeah.
I'm reminded of some of the currents in feminist biology that describe each of us as part of a network system. And the topic that you folks are specializing in is of critical importance to all of us around the world. And I'm going to ask a real dumb question for my own edification and for anyone else who happens to run an organization on the stream. What are your what's your top advice that you could offer for someone who runs an organization to reduce their environmental impact in a way that can be accomplished within the kind of very restrictive systems that we all operate in institutionally?
Well, we released last year a list for art institutions and artists for decreasing their, or shrinking their carbon footprint and working more ecologically. And I could find that and share it with you and with the participants. I don't have it right now here, but I would maybe suggest that, because that's really concrete and simple things also where you can start from. And that's something I suggest, rather than kind of talking some vague, beautiful philosophical ideas here.
We'll be sure to include it in the resources that we publish at the end of the symposium. Sally, did you have something to add?
I don't have an advice, but this is something that we always are questioning, because residency means mobilize. So how can we reduce this? Because since Lugar a Dudas is a place for meeting, for be together, for be in presence, so this is something that is a conflict. So more than an answer, is a question that all the time is around us, how to continue with the residency that we want the presence, no? So I don't know.
Are you struggling with the questions of traveling, how to kind of create these physical connections between people, coming different parts of the globe? Well,
yeah.
we have, for example, this idea of slow travel that we don't, for example, well, let's say we try to encourage people to travel to Mustarinda by slow travel, by land, and avoid flying. And we have, for example, had these slow travel grants for people coming abroad, that they can buy the tickets for land travel, which unfortunately are more expensive more often than the flight tickets, and also for taking the time for the traveling, because it takes more time. But for example, that is something one concrete example how we have encouraged people to travel by more ecological means, to support their travels financially. And then another thing is we have made our residency periods longer, so people can stay there a bit longer time, and then the amount of traveling is also more little. And yeah, Robin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say that we just finished a 3-year project with HIAP, the Helsinki International Artists Program, called Post-Fossil Transition, which was kind of divided into 3 subsections, which dealt with how to approach questions of transport and food and energy. And these 3 considerations for institutions that are kind of working towards being more ecological. HIAP has several resources on their website, and we also have a blog where we've updated a whole load of resources as well, just concerning this whole 3-year project. And from that, there's also begun this Eco-Kerho, eco circle or ring, which is several institutions within Finland that are kind of grouping together to find some kind of way to collectively work out how to reduce the carbon footprints of all of the institutions, and how to standardize it so that it can be a model that can be shared with institutions of any size in any area.
If anyone watching has not visited Mustarinda's website and seen some of the really wonderful documentation that they've made of the slow travel, I really encourage you to do so. It's a wonderful way to spend an afternoon. Each of your programs welcomes artists internationally to specific places. And I'm wondering, Sally, you touched on this briefly, but I'm wondering if you might be able to share some strategies of how you can create a meaningful experience of place when you are able to welcome artists to your site.
Yes, the first thing that we do with artists is to welcome and to host with hospitality as if he is at home, no? The artist is at home, and we try to contact some artists because they before they arrived, they sent some intention of their research, so we know with whom we can contact them. So we invite for maybe a dinner or maybe a place to talk, to have a coffee and talk with the other artists from the local context and start to develop, to be involved with the people. Here in Cali, people are very warm people, so it's very easy to be with the community, with the neighborhood, to talk with them. So this is a kind of we start. We don't ask for a project, a rigid project that ends with something, with a final product, so they can research and they can start, and we just ask them at the end of your residency, you let's show what you did during the residency. So it's very easy, and we know that maybe they go and in some day they trigger in another idea of what they were experienced in the city.
Would anyone else like to respond to that question? Catherine, you have welcomed many, many artists from outside of your borders to your program. And you have a very complex context for those artists to be working within. each of our institutions intersects in some way with our home governments or municipalities. And I'm wondering to what degree you feel you're able to shape that relationship and to what degree your organization is shaped by it, and how artists have responded to that process while you host them. And if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself, it would be easier for us to hear you that way.
Okay, my institution is kind of intermediate between government and artist groups. So my supervisor is Taipei city government. So that's why we do a lot of public events, because we have to meet all of the KPIs from the government. But also we host international artists, special to host them to understand what is Taipei about. And the two artist village, one is inside of the Taipei core, just near the Taipei city, just near the Taipei main station. So it is really easy for us to connect to different kind of artist groups or communities. For instance, if they are interested in the religious groups, we can find somebody we know in the religious groups, so we can connect the artists to the local religious people. And the other one is like Treasure Hill. Treasure Hill is actually, we live inside of the community, and we are so close to our neighbors. So if the international artists, they come to Taipei, they can easily to meet the local people for just maybe they can just cooking together, eating together, dining together, or growing the vegetables together. So a lot of things that we can do in the daily life. So basically, we will review the artist proposal, because every artist, when they come to Taipei, they have a different ideas what they want to do, what kind of people they want to connect. Maybe they want to understand the LBDG groups, or they want to understand the political background of our country, or they want to understand the historical context on each local communities. And then we will try to understand each programs and try to connect with the suitable advisors or suitable consultant or suitable curators together, and for them to make works together. That is how we process all the residency programs here in Taiwan. And after they leave, sometimes they will have their exhibit in the other cities or in other projects. They will contact us back, and to make sure the connection is still there, and to make sure their project can be going on in the other projects, something like that.
I'm so glad that you touched on that idea, because there is, of course, a wealth of thinking about the problems of the so-called parachute artist in our field. In a conversation prior to this one, Robin articulated a present issue for many artists seeking to work with communities outside of their host institutions, which is that neighbors can sometimes be seen by artists as a resource to be mined, and that resource can be depleted. So the prompt on the table is about how to bring artists out into the world, but I'm curious also about bringing your neighbors into your institutions, and wondering if any of you have an experience you could share about strategies or successful experiences welcoming folks who are proximate to your institutions into the process with the artists that you host.
Shall I?
Yes, please.
Well, maybe one thing is also accepting that you don't maybe have to all the time try to welcome and include all the people in your work. It's also totally fine if the neighbors are not like interested in at all what you are doing. What we do, we host the events at the house where we invite the local people, and they are quite low threshold. with varying different kind of program, from workshops to concerts to art exhibitions to just like drinking coffee together. We also go visit our neighbors ourselves, and kind of like just to try to be human to each other, and kind of also forget this kind of like the roles or our like status or whatever, that I am here now like visiting you as a Mustarinda person or an artist or creator or whatever, but more like just showing like a genuine interest toward people. I think that's that's the main thing, maybe. And of course, like in our case, we wouldn't survive without our neighbors. Like it's like dozens of times when they have pulled our car from the snowy ditch when we have been stuck there. So it's also like how do you say, life-saving community to us, to kind of like keep the good relations with them.
It's a reciprocal relationship that we have with them, for sure. And yeah, I think just to add to what Sanna was saying, is just that in thinking of them as neighbors, that equally we are their neighbor, and you know, to just treat as you would want a neighbor to be treating you, in so much as to give them agency, and to kind of try and act as some kind of mediator between what can be sometimes quite alienating or very foreign language and visuals in artistic practices, and yeah, just trying to work with the culture that's already in place there, rather than to attempt to adapt that culture to the understanding of the international art world, which is not everyone's cup of tea.
Well, an interesting thing that happens when you offer agency to exterior actors is that you enter a place of indeterminacy with the artists that you're supporting and the projects that you're working on. We as administrators are tasked with a set of responsibilities from our funders, from our governments, from our other stakeholders. And we've heard a few times today and in other panels that residencies are sites for, as Sally puts it, they're places for doubt, places for interrogation or experimentation. The laboratory environment is a reference that's come up often. And I'm curious if anyone on the panel has been confronted with a conflict between that space of indeterminacy and the deliverables that we have been given by the powers that be, whomever those powers may be. Catherine, you mentioned that you work in a site that has inherited the legacy of squatter politics, which I can imagine like really informs some of what happens there, and even perhaps encourages this idea of indeterminacy.
Mm-hmm. I have several stories, because like I mentioned, the Treasure Hill was occupied the community. So they have they've been through a long process of confrontation with the government. So in the beginning, when we entered the village, we have a very conflict position with the local neighbors especially. And I remember in the several years, they are very angry at us, because us means government, and we are sent by the government to manage the artist. And for the local people, local residents, they don't understand why we have to host a lot of international artists who cannot speak Mandarin language. So we are in the middle. We are, as an intermediate person, we have to communicate and communicate or just convince our neighbors like that we are trying to understand Taiwan. We invite international artists to come over, or maybe we can work together. We can do something together. Not all of the neighbors, they can understand in the very beginning. So after 10 years, I think the community gradually understand what we are trying to do. So within, we have about 20 families who are living, they are currently living inside of the community. Like 2 or 3 families, they like to host the international artists. Their language capability is better. They like to interact with them. But the rest of the families, they are kind of still keep a little bit away. Unless we have parties, we have food, we have meals to share with everybody. So it's depending on everybody, it's depending on everyone's interest, I have to say. Not all of them can understand art, but I think gradually, I think the community is changing, because maybe the first generation, they were veterans, or they has been through the experience of these moving from mainland China to Taiwan. But the second generation or the third generation in their family, they understand more about the current society or contemporary society. They understand what art can do for them, or what the art can connect with us. I think after they understand it, they will be more interested in what we can do together in arts, I have to say. So I think it takes time to feel, or to interact, or to trying to push a little bit in, or to pull it back. Just trying to see how we can negotiate with them. Yeah.
It's interesting. It does strike me that not everyone can understand the extremely complex and advanced discourse that surrounds contemporary art in our historical moment, but every person on earth certainly can understand ideas. And as sites of ideas and idea making, residencies are uniquely positioned to be able to welcome individuals into that process alongside our artists. Each of your institutions works with artists internationally, and as much as this is so, you have an extremely privileged position to be seeing currents of thought throughout the world coalesce in a particular place. And I'm very curious to hear if you have seen correspondences between challenges facing artists in diverse contexts throughout the world, if there can be a similar politic identified, or particular opportunities that artists have created for themselves. Sally, you belong to an international network of programs. Perhaps you could start us off.
Okay. The question is that what the local artists have the opportunity internationally?
Have you noticed any similarities between the challenges or opportunities for your artists working locally and the artists you host from other countries?
Yeah, this is a very strong question, because this is a big problem. This is a city. It's not a capital city, so it's a province that has the same opportunities that maybe has in the capital, in Bogota. And artists here are very recursive with the things that they have. And all these 15 years that we are with the residency program, we try to make these networks, trying to send our local artists to go outside, to go for our residencies. And the mobility for a Colombian artist is very difficult because we need visas. If we have the visas, the people has no the money to go, so we have a grant. So sometimes it's not in the same way that we receive, and how can we send some artists outside? The only thing that helped us is to be in a network, because that's why that I highlight this relationship, because it's the way that we send artists to outside of Colombia. So those platforms are very important for the local scene, for the artists to go out, and we all struggling with this, how to send artists from outside. So this is a very strong point that move us all the time, struggling for the local scene, no? Yeah.
Catherine, have you experienced a similar phenomenon?
Yeah. I noticed, because we host different artists from different places, I noticed in recent years, they are interested in migration, because I think the international migration seems like it's become a very, I don't know how to say it, it's a trend or something. We host the artists from Europe. They want to know their connection with Asia, because maybe some of their artists, the artists, their personal background is like maybe their families is coming from Asia because of the war or because of several conflicts in the past. So they want to find out their own personal history connected with Asia. So for instance, we met several artists from British. They had blood. I think the blood. Their family is from Vietnam, so he wants to understand how the Vietnam refugees in Taiwan, how they were treated back in 1950s or to 1970s. He wants to compare how Taiwanese government treated the refugees with the British government treated the refugees in British. So he wants to find this kind of connection, and he wants to understand why his family have to move or to migrate from Vietnam to maybe to Britain. So we meet some of these kind of artists who wants to know more about their connection with the whole global migration. This is one part. The other part is environmental sustainability. We also find a lot of artists, they are interested in water. Taiwan is an island, so they want to understand how we treat it, or what is our water system, how we treated the water, or how a city treat the water, including what is our policy, the environmental protection policy on water reuse, or how we feel about water, how we construct different kind of facilities or infrastructures to contain the water. So this kind of global issues are very interested by by the artist, and I'm really I feel real privileged to see different kind of artworks produced by artists to show their sense or to show their feelings about water. So this is the way how we can present the artworks from internationally to interpret the water issues in the global issues. So I think the migration, environmental sustainability are the ones they are very interested. And the other one is the homosexual issue. Because I'm not sure whether, because Taiwan is the first country to agree or to admit the LGBT marriage. So it attracts a lot of artists who are interested in this kind of groups or in this kind of issue to come to Taiwan. But we also find many artists who wants to know how our government to see the issue, or how our society or young people to understand or to accept the LGBT groups. So these are the issues. These are topics we find they are very interested and we will try to connect with them to different groups in Taipei.
Mm. So again, we see a proposition of a residency program as a prism or a filter, a site of translation, and also environmental concerns returning as a topic of utmost importance for each of us. I could talk about this with you folks literally all day long, but that would be immensely selfish. It is now time for me to cede the floor to some members of our audience who have come with questions. Forgive me, I'm just going to read these blind. I have no idea what I'm about to encounter. They've been texted to me. And we have one here. What are the biggest challenges of running a residency program focused both on the local and the global level? So it seems, so the thrust of the question seems to be this balancing the tension between local concerns and international concerns. And perhaps we could tie this back to the question of inviting neighbors in, encouraging a sense of collective thought about questions at a global scale.
Yeah, I think that we're kind of living in a time now where any concerns of the local are concerns of the global, that these issues can very easily be translated to any location and be scaled both up and down to fit any scenario. Yeah, so I think the only issue, or the only difficulty, lies in the mediation of that translation between the particular locality that we're in, or whichever residency program or whatever institution there is, and the artist. But I think that I don't think that you can isolate the local so much anymore.
I think that
Catherine, go ahead. Or was it Sally? I apologize.
Sally?
You can go. Okay. I think that the most important thing for Lugar a Dudas is to work with the local context, because this is our community. So when an international artist come for a residency, this relationship we are stimulate to know the people, to know the community, and is the way to translate in a globally. So is try to stimulate this relationship for us. Is the most important thing in the residency.
I agree with Sally, because we spend a lot of time to explore with our local context, because it do takes time. And when the international artists come to Taiwan, they want to know the local history. They want to know more about your country, your city, your neighbors. So if we don't understand what is our neighbor interest or what our neighbors do, it's so hard for us to translate or to make our artists to understand, or to make our artists to connect with our local context. So I think it's right now, I think it will be much more challenging for us to know the local people, to know the local industry and why they are doing this, why they are deciding on these issues. So those are the ones that we really spend a lot of time to communicate. And when we host the international, the more information we get, the more information we can share So I think it's a globally the global issue or local issue. I think it's really easy to connect. Now, for instance, like I'm talking about the migration. Migration, it may be a big issue, but everybody has a home. So when we're talking about the family, the home, the feeling about the home, the connection about the home, everybody can connect, whether you are local people or you are international people. So as long as we understand the local context, we can share more with our international friends.
That reminds me of
one. Sorry.
Go ahead.
One thing that I've kind of like, I think that is sometimes challenging is like when there comes like either global guests or then like even like people from bigger towns in Finland to Mustarinda, which is like a really remote location, is this kind of like a exercising gaze that people have, that they come to the local community and somehow like it sometimes see it like in a wrong way or like in a bit like awkward way, like exotic, and somehow exotize the local community, which like then as a residency host is sometimes it feels a bit bad that it kind of like people are living their like regular everyday life there, and then there comes like this group of people who are just like, oh, look how they dress, or oh, this is how they live their lives. And that I think is one challenge that I would like to grasp on in the future in our activities.
It's an excellent point of feeling I know intimately. That first question really connected nicely with the second. We are, of course, in a moment of not totally unprecedented historical moment of pandemic that has revolutionized the way each of us meets and corresponds with our constituencies. The question on the table is, what does space look like when the residency is digital, and what strategy would you suggest to develop a digital community?
I have to say we're really bad in the digital community, because I really feel residency is the place for people to meet in person. So we tried a little bit with the virtual residency this year, but it didn't work. I don't think it works very well. It takes so much time online and to talk with the strangers, because when people meet together, both of the artists, they don't know each other before. So if we via the internet or via the screen, we have to warm up the surroundings or the feel to connect with each other via the screens. It's not easy to connect people with that screen things. So it's not like a party. It's not like we really walk in a space and we just have a drink or talk with somebody and to feel the people. So it's not easy to do, but we will try a little more maybe next year with the virtual residence. The virtual residence has to have something to see or to something in center. For instance, I know one residence this year, they used the book of plague to start with, to talk about what's happening with the pandemic, this kind of international disease and spreading out to different cities, and what people fear about, what the government are like about. So maybe we start with some common topic together, and starting from there, the artists can participate it, and afterwards they create something digitally, like images or films or sound. But that's the only thing that they can do. That's all. So I don't think, I still feel something is lacking in these virtual residencies. So I don't think we are success yet.
I completely agree with Catherine. And this is something that we are rethinking, because it's something that is around us. And maybe it's a process that is going to change, but for us, it's very difficult if I repeat, if we are saying that we are the place to be together. It's very different to be here in this place. And when Kari invited me, I told her, oh, I'm so tired of the Zoom meeting, but I know that I need this discussion because we are going to learn from the others. But for me, for Lugar a Dudas, it was something that we are thinking and rethinking. How can we are going to be if we need to pass to the digital field, but for us to feel the person side by side, to have a coffee, to see the face and to touch people, to feel her breathe, I don't know, is something very different, a different experience of this experience of digital in a square, one here and around us. So it's a process that we have to go through, but it's very challenging for us.
Well, I think we're doing a great job, if I may say so myself. We have time for just one last question. And I'm very curious to hear the answer. The question is as follows: if you had total freedom to change the architecture and/or location of your residency program, would you? And the postscript is, it seems that your physical environment has had a huge impact on your activities and programs. Would anyone change their site?
I think like not anymore. I think when Mustarinda was founded, it wasn't founded like only because of the site. It's but now I think the area and the forest and the neighbors and the local community, it kind of like tangles to Mustarinda. So if it would be moved somewhere else from there, it wouldn't be the same, or like it wouldn't be Mustarinda, then it would be some other artistic residency focusing on ecological issues. Even our name is based on old name in old maps on that area. So it wouldn't be called Mustarinda either then probably.
It would be a place of doubt. It continues.
Well, thank you all so much for contributing to this conversation. I will be taking these ideas back to my office on Monday and spending a lot more time with them. For anyone who had difficulty keeping up, the documentation, as I mentioned, will be posted to rethinkingresidencies.org almost immediately upon the conclusion of the symposium. And it is my pleasure to now direct your attention to a video on the topic of decolonizing the residency by artist Lasagna Cruz, in a very specific example of the interrelationship between many of the programs of Rethinking Residencies and some of the topics we just discussed. Lasagna has participated in several of our programs. And we'll be addressing this critical issue that has come up quite often in the past couple days of conversations. And make sure that you we've got an hour and a half break, but don't go anywhere because at 5 o'clock, we're going to begin our second panel And in the intervening time, a slideshow prepared by members of Rethinking Residencies will cycle through. And as a quick kind of technical note, I do want to remind folks who are taking that break and rejoining us at 5 p.m. that you will need to log back in to Zoom to access the second portion of the day. Thanks so much, and I'll see you then.
Hi everyone, I hope you're well and enjoying the symposium. My name is Lisania Cruz and I am a Dominican participatory artist. I am currently in the town of Samana, which is part of the formerly known island of Haiti, and that now forms two nation states, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Samana is in the northeast side of the Dominican Republic, and it used to be the land of the Siguayos. So there's so much to cover under residency and decolonization, because I believe that we live under the legacy of the colony and that economic structure. So I decided to focus on two things. First is the selection and application process, and how often the selection and application process is based on merit and identity. In my humble opinion, two very colonial ideas. So how can we create access to a residency that is not based on how good the work is or how good the artist is, but what are the rubrics of considering who belongs to a community and a residency? Similarly, I understand the importance of creating safer space based in identity, and directly supporting marginalized communities. But I've been wondering who benefits the most that we are separated in these silos based on identity. And why is it that funding always gets distributed through these silos? So I've been wondering a lot about what is a pluralistic and pluralism look in a residency modeled and structure. The second thing I wanted to focus was capital, and how in residencies often the artist's labor is in exchange of capital. When we do residencies, we are asked, to leave work behind for the institution, do open studio tours, like creative report, finalize a project or a piece, etc. So, and sometimes our labor is not even compensated. We have to pay in order to go to a residency. So I've been thinking about, can residencies be a space where we think, read, take time off, think of wellness, of mental health. And I know there's residencies out there already thinking about this, but we need more of this. So I, as an artist that has not gone to grad school, residencies have created an incredible support system for my practice. So I'm really excited that these conversations are taking place, and I really look forward to hearing and continuing these conversations after the symposium. Thank you so much for the invitation.